This is a day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. It's good having everybody here this morning, especially our visitors. Hope you've had a good week. Mine has been crazy as always. This morning, I want us to talk about water. Water is all around us in all kinds of different forms. We have a little bit of humidity here, not as much as we did back in the southeast. The southeast, if you haven't been down there, the humidity is so bad that most people don't have sprinkler systems. It gets watered during the night with the humidity, the dew that falls. Whereas up here we don't have that much humidity, and so that's the reason we have sprinklers. We have rain. We have lakes and streams and oceans that we see and enjoy all around us. And it's also below us in what we call the aquifer. So we're surrounded by water. Before we get into the lesson on water, I want us to talk about how we carry water around us every day. Up to 60% of the human adult body is water, according to H.H. Mitchell in the Journal of Biological Chemistry 158, whatever that is. The brain and heart are composed of 73% water. The lungs, about 83% water, which surprised me. To me, I would consider that drowning, But, we do have moisture in our body, and we do exhale it. I don't know if you've ever slept in a camper or a tent and wake up in the morning and it's all covered in moisture. That's because of exhaling that 83% of that moisture in your lungs out. The skin contains 64% of water. Muscles and kidneys, 79%. And even the bones are watery with 31%. And I don't know if you can read that or not, but how do we use this water? Well, we need it for the brain to manufacture hormones and neurotransmitters. It regulates our body temperatures through sweating and respiration. It acts as a shock absorber for the brain and our spinal cord. It converts food to components needed for survival and digestion. It helps deliver oxygen all over the body, which I thought blood did that, but I guess water helps too. Water is a major component of most body parts. It lubricates the joints, flushes body waste, mainly in urine, allows your body cells to grow, reproduce, and survive, keeps mucous membranes moist, and it forms saliva, which is used for digestion. But don't worry, we're not going to go into a biology or chemistry discussion this morning. I just wanted to share with you some interesting facts that I found this week in dealing with water and how it is in your body. This morning I want to share with you, though, different kinds of water that we see and which types you might associate with. I'm not used to having people over here when I just happen to realize they can't see the screen, so I get over here in the corner. Have you ever been out driving in this beautiful country that we have up here in the Pacific Northwest and come upon a lake or maybe even a stream that is so smooth that it's mirror-like? And like in the picture, and you can see a reflection of the beautiful scenery on the other side. And do you just stop and take a moment and look at the beauty and how it's being reflected and just wow at the fact that huge lake is just mirror, that there's nothing disturbing it, no wind, no fish, no birds, no nothing, and just, admire God's beauty. The countryside is peaceful and calm and majestic to experience. And you usually have to get up pretty early in the morning to find this, because the wind is going to wake up soon and start blowing, and it's going to do away with this mirror, and you get that ripple effect. But how long does it take for that peaceful time to last? Usually not for long. But I hope you enjoy it. And how is it that your life is like this lake? How many times this past week has your life been peaceful and calm and mirror-like? Did you have any times like that this week? Or was it all hectic? You know, that's what we're going to look at this morning, is how our life, if you can use that term, reflects in the water. Okay? So the first one we're going to look at is being peaceful and calm. In Matthew 10, verse 34, do not think that I came to bring peace. Of course, this is Jesus talking. I did not come to bring peace on earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. And here in the following verses, Jesus refers to how that father is going to be against brother and son, and mother is going to be against daughter, and referring to somebody being baptized in the family, and they're not. And that's going to cause problems, maybe because they got baptized outside of what people refer to as the family religion. Okay? And it causes issue. And that's what Christ is warning the people, that you might think I came to bring peace, but unfortunately it's going to bring problems within the family. Okay? This verse doesn't mean that we can't find peace or have peace in our lives. We can. We just have to look for it like we did when we found that beautiful, smooth lake. In Matthew 14, verse 27, Jesus spoke these words to his disciples right after what we call the Last Supper, just before his death. In verse 27, peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you. Not as the world does, do I give to you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. Jesus didn't come to give peace, but he did give us an inner peace that we can have only through him. Maybe our life is okay for the most part, but we do have a few ripples or small waves to contend with. It is nothing serious enough that we can't go about in our little small sailboat and enjoy the day. But it isn't smooth and carefree as that mirrored lake. Maybe there's a coworker who rubs you the wrong way. Maybe there's a neighbor who can't seem to talk about his new truck all the time. Is it that time of year where maybe you're having to study for school finals? Maybe the kids get home and they, in 15 minutes, destroy the house that took you all day long to finally get clean again. These things are just a minor bump in the road of life, but they can get bigger if you allow them to get under your skin. In James 1, verses 2 through 8, my brethren, count it all joy when you fall into various trials. How many times do we do that? How many times during our week when we face trials, and we all face them, do we count it joy? Oh, great, I'm glad that guy just cut me off. You know? How many times do we count it pure joy? Verse 3, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. Don't ever make the mistake of praying for patience like I did when we had the 3 girls at home. Because the way you get more patience is get more trials, you know? And they were just worse, which gives you more patience. Verse 4, but let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all liberally and without reproach, and it will be given to him. But let him ask in faith with no doubting. For he who doubts is like a wave of the sea, driven and tossed by the wind. For let not the man suppose that he will receive anything from the Lord. He is a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways. What are various trials? We face them every day. It is whenever the devil uses to get under your skin and to get at you, to get you to sin. He is after me almost every day, all day it seems like. Everything I touch falls. Everything I try to do fails. I've been trying to make some shelving for my new work van, and I'll measure it, and I'll measure it, and I'll measure it, and I'll cut it, and it's still wrong. You know, and I'll toss that piece of wood, which for those of you who knows right now, wood, you can't waste it. You know, I brought a whole van of scrap wood I've collected over the years, and I'm trying to make all these shelves so it's precious wood because I don't have to go buy anything. And so I'm measuring it 2 or 3 times, and I'm checking it, and I'm holding it, and I cut it, and I mess it up. You know, so I toss that piece. But it's the devil. I look at it as the devil trying to get after me, trying to get me to sin, trying to get me to say things that I shouldn't be saying. And he does that with each and every one of us. He knows what it is that's going to make you sin. And he is trying to get you to do that. These little trials add up and add up all day long. And I just want to blow sometimes like a volcano. That is how Satan works in our life to test our faith. But that testing of our faith produces patience. I bought I guess you call it a jig, so that you can put two pieces of wood together at a 90 degrees, and you screw it down and you clamp it, and it's at a good tight 90 degrees. And I did that. I paid $35 for this. Sorry, I didn't mean to say that. I paid some money for it. But I put it together, and it wasn't holding the wood flat. And I'd unscrew it, and I'd tighten it back together, and I'd look at it, and I got to look at the bottom of it, and they should have a flat piece that you put the board down on, and then you can put it together. This didn't have that. I was like, this is a piece of junk. It's wasted. It's useless. I literally threw it across my garage because it made me mad. The devil won that one, but I didn't say anything, but it made me mad. But we need to make sure that when we go to God for help, that we mean it, and that we have the faith to ask God for help without doubting. Otherwise, we are like waves being tossed by the sea. The third type of water I want to look at this morning is a little rougher. Maybe your life is past the minor waves, and you are now into the choppy, uncertain waves of life. You don't know if you should go to shore where it is safe or stay put and wait out the rough seas. You are at a crossroads, being tossed to and fro with the decisions you need to make in your life. Maybe it is about changing jobs, or buying another car, or moving, or taking a promotion. You never know. Maybe it's something in your relationship with your family that is causing turmoil. Could be that changes you made or need to make in your lifestyle that is causing you anguish. Maybe it is changes in your finances that are causing you grief. Maybe your spouse is out of town again, and you're having to face troubles of life alone again, and that is weighing you down. Have you had any changes in friendships that you weren't expecting, and you blame yourself? Do you need to make changes to how you use your time so that you are not stressed all the time, and that you can spend more time with your family and enjoy that quiet, still lake? In Psalms 46:10, we read, "Be still and know that I am God." Be still. How can we be still if we are running all over the place? How can we be still if we are packing our minds with everything but God? How can we be still if we are not settled? How can we be still if we don't make or take the time for God in our lives? How can we be still if our lives are in turmoil? Take time in your busy day to be still for God. You might be asking yourself, well, how can I be still? I have way too much to do today. These scriptures in Ephesians 6 are dealing with putting on the whole armor of God. Verse 11 states to put on the whole armor of God that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. What does wiles of the devil mean? Well, according to the Webster Dictionary, wiles means to trick or stratagem, intended to ensnare or deceive, a beguiling or playful trick or skill in outwitting or to lure by or as if by a magic spell. In other words, the devil is going to use everything he can to get at you. He is going to use everything that he could think of to make you sin. And he knows what it is that's going to make you sin. He knows your weaknesses, and he's going to use those against you. That's the wiles of the devil. And then dropping down to verse 17 and 18, and take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, praying always with all prayer and supplication in the Spirit, being watchful to this end with all perseverance and supplication for all the saints. How do we stop the wiles of the devil? We must pray all the time. Or as in 1 Thessalonians 5:17 states, we must pray without ceasing. The second thing we need to do to be able to be still and to spend time is to spend time meditating on the Scriptures. As Psalms 1, verses 1 through 3 tells us, "Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor stands in the path of sinners, nor sits in the seats of the scornful. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law he meditates day and night. He shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that brings forth its fruit in its season, whose leaf also shall not wither, and wherever he does shall prosper." We can't get our counsel and advice from outside of the church and expect godly wisdom. We must turn to God's word and study it and meditate on it day and night. That is how we deal with our earthly problems. By going to God in prayer and reading his word, we can find the stillness we need to remind us who God is and know that God is in our lives. Be still and know who God is in your life. Maybe your life is in total turmoil. Can your life be summed up as maybe a tornado or a hurricane ready to make landfall? There is no way to predict the path of a tornado. Science has gotten better, and they can pretty well predict when it's going to happen and maybe in a general area. But once that tornado touches down, there's no way of predicting how strong it's going to be or what path it's going to take or who it's going to hit. Same way with hurricanes. If you'll notice, especially coming from the southeast, I'm real familiar with them, but they have now coming up with like 40 or 50 different predictions. And they'll show you on the screen all these different colored lines coming from all these different computers are predicting where it's going to make landfall and how it's going to go. The only way to predict where a hurricane is going to land and what path it's going to take is 5 minutes after it's done it. I've tracked hurricanes since the 70s on a map that my dad had started back in the 50s. And I've seen them head straight for hometown, Pensacola, and then at the last minute curve and take a dog leg and hit Fort Walton Beach, Florida. When we were living in Panama City one time, there was one that had come up the coast, and we evacuated, and it literally went the curve of Florida down to Tampa. We came back home. It stopped, turned around, and came back. Did something hurricanes never done, and it finally went inland that way, and so we had to evacuate again. But you don't know what a hurricane's going to do until it's after he's done it. So is that how your life is? Is that how you feel sometimes? You don't know what you're doing or where you're going or what's going to happen next until after it has occurred? That is no way to live, and that is not how God wants you to live your life. In Philippians 4, verse 6, "Be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication and thanksgiving, let your request be made known to God." In Psalm 91:2, "I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress. My God in Him I will trust." Before a tornado strikes, the news reporter will tell everybody, if you've got a storm shelter, get in it, get underground, find shelter in your bathtub or whatever. During a hurricane, the reporters will always tell you, evacuate. There is no safety from a hurricane. It destroys everything. And there's also flooding, so storm shelters don't really do that good in Florida. Plus you dig a hole and you hit water. So storm shelters you don't see storm shelters in Florida. Okay? But we as Christians have a safe place to go during the horrific storms in life. We are to take refuge and safety in our fortress of God. In Him we shall trust. Then in Psalm 65:7, "You who still the noise of the seas and the noise of the waves." And of course, that is referring to God. He can still the noise of the sea and the noise of the waves, will have no problem getting rid of the storms in your life. You will be still and know about God. And then in John 8, verse 12, then Jesus spoke to them again, saying, I am the light of the world. He who follows me shall not walk in darkness, but have the light of life. Jesus is our lighthouse during the storms in our life. You know that lighthouse on the coast is alerting sailors of impending danger. It is up to the captain to head away from that warning, to heed that warning, or to ignore it totally and to crash on the rocks or run aground. The same is true for us as Christians. God has given us the direction we need to follow the narrow path to heaven. It is up to us to follow those directions that we find in the Bible or to ignore them and to sink into hell. This is a picture of Horseshoe Bend in Utah, north of Grand Canyon. Kathy and I had visited Grand Canyon, and we were circling back up, and I had forgotten about this till I saw the sign, and I was really excited to get there. But the sun was starting to set on those mountains behind, and there was just no time left to be able to walk out. I think it's like a mile from the road to this overlook. So we didn't get to see it. But maybe your life is like the Colorado River here. You have spent your life going one way, and you realize that you need to change course. You need to get your life right with God. You need to get on the straight and narrow path to heaven and follow what the Bible teaches. It is not too late for you to make that change in your life, but it's up to you to decide to make that change and to follow Christ. Nobody can make that decision for you. But we are here as a family of God to help you in that change and to guide you on your new path of life if you want to become a Christian and be baptized into his watery grave. This morning I want to close in Mark 4, verses 35 through 41. On the same day, when evening had come, he said to them, let us cross over to the other side. Now when they had left the multitude, they took him along in the boat, of course being Jesus, and he was there. And other little boats were also with him. And a great windstorm arose, and the waves beat into the boat, and that it was so already filling. But he was in the stern, asleep on a pillow, that they awoke him and said to him, Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing? Then he arose and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, Peace, be still. And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. But he said to them, Why are you so fearful? How is it that you have no faith? And they feared exceedingly and said to one another, Who can this be that even the wind and the sea obey him? We are going to face storm after storm after storm in our lives. We must remember that God is always there to calm those storms and get us back on the straight and narrow path to heaven. But we have to have the faith to ask. For some, that is hard to do, especially for men. We are a rock. We are the rock of the family, and we're supposed to be solid, and we don't need any help. But we do. We do need help. We need help from each other. We need help from God. It doesn't matter how big the storm is that we are facing in our life, God can still that storm with 3 simple words: peace, be still. I found this slide that I wanted to share with you. It's John 16:33. I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace in this world, and you will have trouble. But take heart, I will overcome the world. As we close this morning, I want you to seriously take a step back and look at your daily lives. Is your life smooth and mirror like the first picture that we looked at, with no worries and no troubles? Or do you have just a few problems that step every now and then and causes just a few ripples in your life, but those you can handle? Or is your life a hurricane with troubles and problems that you feel like are going to destroy you, that you don't know what to do and where to turn. It doesn't matter what kind of water that you are this morning. God is there to help you if you will let him. Let us help you with prayers and encouragement by coming forward